Welcome all to Annunaki Radio. This is the dedicated radio show for UFO and related phenomena. Here we interview authors and researchers regarding the Annunaki, the Nephilim, ancient astronaut theory, UFO sightings and crashes, and of course abductions. You can catch us on YouTube as Annunaki Radio, and also like us on Facebook as Annunaki Radio. This is your host James, and I'm delighted to have my returning guest today, Mr. Gerald R. Clark. And again, this is a series of podcasts we are doing covering Gerald's latest book, Seventh Planet Mercury Rising. Gerald, also the author of Annunaki of Nibiru, and you can catch both of Gerald's books on his website, geraldclark77.com. You can catch his cool blog there as well, where he's got a lot of background material on his books and this wonderful, exciting topic that we're discussing. And so without further ado, let's bring on today's guest. Hi, Gerald. You're very welcome to the show.
Hi, James. It's really great to be back again doing this deep dive into this book series with you.
Oh, I get so excited, Gerald, when I got these shows coming up. It's like it's like I'm traveling, I'm coming back, I'm all over the place. I got shows different, but I get really pumped these shows, Gerald. It's like I get so much out of them, Gerald. I guess I love the research, I love the value of the show that we do, and I get great feedback as well, Gerald. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get some pretty deep topics today as well.
Oh, for sure. Wow, Gerald, let's get into it. I mean, we're still on the Emerald tablets. We're battling through. We'll take a break maybe next week. We've a Nibiru show to do, but let's go straight into it. Let's talk about Thoth the Atlantean. It seems, Gerald, we're starting to build a picture of this guy, going through these tablets, who he is, what he's about, what his agenda is. I feel like I'm building a picture of this guy, Gerald. Do you get that sense as we're progressing through these?
Well, yeah, and the interesting part for me was starting from the Enuma Elish, where he was introduced as Ningshita, and then here where he's introduced as Thoth. I kind of skipped this part and went to Samaria and learned about Ningshita again. So come back to the Emerald Tablets and fill in his childhood, where he was born, how he got to where he was before he took on his mission. I mean, this is massively illuminating, even compared to the time when he returned from escorting the Adapa to meet Anu and then came back with his mission. So to me, this is one of the most illuminating parts about his intentions, a little background on himself, and then he gives you the whole process. It's just massive levels and depths of wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're on tablet 4 today, Gerald, and of course I'll play the tablet 4 at the end of the first half of the show when we're done talking about it, just so that people can get a feel of it as well, Gerald. We'll play that out for them. Narrated by yourself, obviously. Let's get into Thoth and his childhood and Atlantis. I could talk about Atlantis all day long, Gerald. Once you say the word Atlantis, you have my attention. You can click. It's just like clicking your fingers. I don't know what it is.
The first time the story of Atlantis came to my attention, I was reading this book that was given to me by a friend at the University of California, San Diego, while I was part of Cal IT2. And it was called The Ancient Atlantic, and it had the good smell of an old book. I know you love old books.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, I got to thumbing around in this, and it had the complete dialogue between Socrates and Plato describing Solon's discussion with Plato, and kind of the handoff of the history that he gathered, trying to find out about Atlantis. So I know that this is, and it kind of gives you another layer of insight into their culture and their capabilities and what happened. He tells you the whole story. So starting out, this is Emerald Tablet 4 that he titles The Spaceborn. Well, that's kind of an interesting thing to say because he describes his childhood on Atlantis, dreamily being the son of royalty, apparently, such that he has the time to sit and dream and look at the stars and think about plotting his way that he's going to somehow peruse the cosmos. So he sets his sights very high as a youngster, okay? So after a while, he starts using some terms for himself that I found very interesting, kind of character terms that show up in other texts. And in particular, I'm talking about the King James Version of the Canonical Bible, we read in Isaiah 14:12 where it's talking about the fall of Lucifer. And most versions of that verse, Isaiah 14:12, have removed the word Lucifer and have replaced it with a son of the morning or day star or something to that effect. And you have to ask yourself, well, why was that done? Was that to confuse, this old referential term that he used himself, son of the morning? Okay?
Mm.
And then, and this is exactly the same term that replaces the term Lucifer in Isaiah 14:12.
Wow.
So, in my opinion, this is one more attempt, and I've already given you several in the book, and I think we're going to talk about more of them later, where it's pretty clear that Enlil sees Ningshita as a clear threat in his war on the battle on the evolution of consciousness, and he's thwarting him, blaming Ningshita for the fallen state of the nations in that verse, by replacing his name with this reference to Ningshita. So when you see it that way, it's like, oh, okay, well that gives, the fact that Lucifer only shows up one time and then it gets edited out, it's pretty telling. So anyway, I wanted to make that connection. So he further describes himself as the one that gathered the wisdom of the space-time, the current space-time cycle that they're in, and then again calls himself son of the morning, living forever. So he's implying he's eternal, a child of the light, and then again he uses this term, star of the morning, to refer to himself.
Mm.
So this is a very, very important term that it's kind of a biblical term, okay? But as the text goes on, he calls himself by his name that shows up in Egypt, which is Thoth. And functionally, he's allocated for himself to be the teacher of men, and claiming that he's hailing from the source of all. His power comes from the source of all. That's what he's saying. So that's pretty intense, right?
Wow.
Go ahead.
Do we call Ningshita then a fallen angel? Would it be to make that jump?
Actually, if you read the rest of Isaiah 14:12, it talks about the being who's a destroyer that's bringing the nations low. Now, as in every role that you've seen Ningshita, he's not been doing that. It's been Enlil. Okay, so that's how I put 3 references to Lucifer together from the Illuminati, from the Catholic Church, and I think from the Lucifer scope on Mount Graham, and kind of connected the infiltration of the Illuminati into the Masons to tie them to who is this being Lucifer? Well, it's clearly a destroyer. So the idea that he was trying to supplant his name, Lucifer, with son of the morning or day star or morning star, is symbolically trying to blame the fall of the nations on Ningshita. That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
But you know who did it. All you had to do is go back and read the Lamentation of Ur and see what he did to even his own son. So I want to make that real clear that it's really a smear campaign.
Mm.
So anyway, Thoth says he's going to seek a way to conquer the cosmos. This is his lofty goal as a youth on Atlantis. And ultimately, through his striving, he discovers this method that he believes is the way to seek further wisdom, and that's what we call an out-of-body experience. And he actually previously mentions this, and in this time he actually goes a couple steps further and describes kind of the prerequisites and what relaxed state you had to be in for this to work. Okay, so he says, number one, that it's really important that you learn to be silent, and in other words, break the bondage of words. So he tells you to find a quiet place, go deep in silence, and overcome the desire to speak. Because once you've done that, then he says, overcome your desire for food. Now this is kind of like deep spiritual practices that many religions do, fasting and praying and so on and so forth. So here he's telling you, please do that. And he doesn't tell you how long, but he says abstain from eating until conquering the desire for food, which he calls the bondage of the soul. Then, once you've done that, he says, lay down in the darkness with your eyes closed. and center your soul force in the place of your consciousness. Okay? So in other words, he wants you to take on a narrow internal focus so that you don't go to sleep. This is where it crosses over with this borderland dream state training from Robert Monroe that I've been talking about. Okay? So then he tells you to place in your mind this destination that you want to visit, and he's highly encouraging you to make that choice to be the halls of Amenti and follow his footsteps. That's what he tells you eventually. And then he starts talking about the use of frequency to separate your soul from the body. And this is exactly what Robert Monroe talks about when he gets you into this borderland dream state where your body's asleep and your mind's still awake. When you start hearing this rushing sound, he tells you to circulate that through your body along your long axis like an antenna. And he eventually says he thinks it's about 27 hertz that causes the separation of the body. Now, they've been monitoring this with instruments over in the Monroe Institute for some time, many, many years. I read his first book when I was 17. So they've been looking at this technology for a long time. So I would kind of defer to what he says, but it's not like you have to think 27 hertz or whatever to, you can kind of know what 60 hertz is. That's what your heartbeat is. So, so it's a little bit slower than that. But, anyway, he's telling you to circulate this energy up and down your body until you reach this certain state, which he says you fiercely must shake with all of thy power until at last thy soul shall be free. Well, I've had many of these experiences, and basically when this sound comes in your head, and you start oscillating this energy, very suddenly you're at a state where whatever you think will happen. Whether you think to sit up, rise out of your body, think of a destination, think of a person, whatever you think instantly happens. And that's what he's saying right here, is place your mind in the destination to visit. And then he tells you to basically leave your body and visit the place. And later, we talk about some of the passage rites and the keys that he gives you to be able to go through there and eventually go visit what he calls his ancient home on Orulu, which is interesting because we're going to talk about Nibiru next show. I guess we already disclosed that. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of new information out about it. So we originally had the Annunaki coming from Nibiru, so we got to reconcile what this place Orulu is. And so we'll talk about that when we get into the holographic models.
Oh, sure. This out-of-body experience. Oh, before I do, isn't it funny, Gerald? Just on the 60 hertz thing and the heartbeat, isn't it funny that they create electricity on this planet at 60 hertz? I mean, they has a chance. That's why you can stop your heart if you get electric shock. Most people don't realize that they actually produce at the same frequency as your heartbeat. It's incredible that they do that.
Well, actually, when I was researching the brainwave frequencies that could potentially land in the 9-mile underworld frequencies, mm-hmm. which I ran into a stumbling block on that because the frequencies that Ian Lungold shows are way outside the human brainwave frequency that apparently map to chakras, whereas the approach I was taking, since the Robert Monroe seems to describe landing in the alpha. Well, I think it's the alpha region personally, because your brainwaves slow down; they don't speed up. Mm. This energy that happens whenever you start to separate from your body could be happening at a higher frequency, like he said, 27 hertz, maybe higher. But what I found is within about 10 seconds, it settles in, and all the jumpiness in your body stops. And it's at that point where you can actually separate. Okay? And this comes directly from Robert Monroe's book as well. And it's been exactly my experience. Okay? Mm-hmm. So this is some pretty interesting stuff. So what does he do when he leaves the body? Well, like he said, he wanted cosmic knowledge. So, he gathered lots of cosmic wisdom during his, oob as he traveled through the various, spherical boundary layers that envelop the holographic universe that we live in, all the way to the point where the duat is. Well, he says he went way beyond that, okay? Now, let's stop and remind the listeners real quick about just a part of the model so we can talk to this, okay? So, according to Thoth's discussion all through the tablets, which I synthesized into a diagram and put it on my blog and put it on my Facebook. And I call it the holographic model or holographic universe, according to Thoth. Well, he describes our Earth as being a place that's enveloped by an energy field such that we can't leave this third dimension. And there's only one way out, and that's through a portal that he calls the duat, which is actually 2 dimensions stacked with an entrance on one side and an entrance on the other side that are each different dimensions. Okay, so that's 2 more dimensions separating us from the ultimate goal, which they said, connecting one side of the duat, they said they had 15 access ways from there back to their next dimension, which that would be 3, 4, 5, 6, sixth dimension on Arulu. And they describe on the duat having a house of 12, and the house of illusion, and there's funky stuff that goes on at the duat, including a gate guard, which he calls Osiris.
This is incredible, Gerald. I'm actually
it's absolutely incredible. So he's out cruising around out of his body, visiting all these planets, all these races. He even describes going all the way to the circle of light, the infinite circle of light. Well, as you'll find out later, that's the place that's only occupied by the creator of all and no one else, according to his model, okay? So somehow he got all the way to there while he's cruising around. Now, what I want to tie together for you with this, what was in my book, is Robert Monroe, this guy who wrote the Journeys Out of the Bodies, described in his later books, he wrote 3 of them, basically through all his experiences out of his body, and he had many, and documented every single one of them. He basically generically categorized 3 boundary layers around the Earth, and then there being a final boundary that you could not go past. Okay, so he called them locales 1, 2, and 3. Well, it turns out we had 2 known Van Allen belts that were radiation belts that spherically surround the Earth at different distances, and they just recently found, and I disclosed in my book, a third one that's sandwiched in between them. So all of a sudden, you've got the 3 locales that are defined by these Van Allen radiation belts that seem to the Earth like a spherical energy shield. 3 of them. Okay, so now that we found these scientifically, and also the fact that there was a hard limit at the 3rd one that he described as well. Well, Thoth goes on in the later tablet and talks about what happens when he went beyond this limit without coordinating it correctly. It was frightening. Actually, he dedicated a tablet to that. So he learned all kinds of things while he was out of his body, and he shared some of those in this tablet with you.
You know what, Gerald, just to jump in there, and I have another author that I've interviewed on the show, slightly different concepts, but basically he says the exact same thing. He's actually an electrical engineer too, Gerald, which I find incredibly interesting. And he says about us not being able to leave this earth and that we're like magnetically shielded. And he talks about souls incarnating and like in voltages, and they have like a plus voltage or a negative voltage, depending on whether you've subjugated your ego or done some good. And that's what the ancient Egyptians were talking about, the weighing of the heart against the feather of truth. And they talk about these other worlds that you at, and it's the same stuff. And he's also into ancient Egypt and all the ancient civilizations too. Different reasons and different concepts, Gerald. But in terms of incarnation and being able to leave this earth, I haven't heard it explained before in terms of the Van Allen belt being the reasons, Gerald, and the 3 layers. But this is incredibly sophisticated insight now, Gerald, that I'm hearing. It's basically magnetically shielding us that we can't leave, Gerald.
Yeah, I also wanted to give a call out to T.J. Hagelin. He, in his Virtual Earth Graduate book that he wrote last year, I think he was one of the first people to make a correlation between the 3 layers that Robert Monroe refers to as layer 1, 2, and 3, and the boundaries in the holographic simulator that we are going to have talked about and believe that we're in. And it just so happens that those coincide with the 3 Van Allen belts, these radiation belts that we've discovered. And one of them was just recently discovered.
Wow. You know, Gerald, this is what I love about you. You bring the science into it. You bring the relevant research from other people on this planet in our historical records, recent research, and modern science. And so we're not just talking about some abstract concept in the Emerald Tablets here, Gerald. This is quite applicable from what we know.
Yeah,
it matches in quite nice.
You know, I think it probably has not been very applicable to some of our understandings, how we've come to be at a very technical place now, such that a lot of this stuff can be understood instead of just writing it off as mythology or magic or a mishmash. When, you know, doing this deep dive with me, you realize this is the penultimate knowledge. I mean, penultimate.
Sure.
I have never come across anything that basically gives you the rules of the simulator and how it's set up, and that's what this does.
Mm.
So he's out. Thoth is out of his body. Recall, flying around in the simulator, and before we go too much farther beyond that, you know, I've mentioned Michael Talbot writing the Holographic Universe, which I guess is a bestseller, and after reading that book, I had premonitions about the holographic nature of reality, but I didn't have a lot of models to work with. Well, his really helped me. And once I had that in my mind, it never went away. So, just recently, I came across Richard Allen Miller. He was in a couple of interviews, and he had mentioned my book. And I thought, well, I'll reach out to him and touch base with him. So we've been catching up a little bit. Well, he turned me on to some of his articles he's done for Nexus magazine. And he's an author there, and does a lot of work with the folks at Nexus. Anyway, he had an article that he had written back in 1973 on the holographic nature of reality. He had published in Scientific Journal. So, you know, this is not a new idea. It's kind of getting a resurgence with the play it's been getting in Hollywood and such, I think. So I wanted to give him a little bit of a call out too, because this guy used to run around with Timothy Leary, and he actually knew Michael Talbot. So his work predated even Michael Talbot's book on the holographic universe. So so there's been some real pioneers in this field.
Wow.
Yeah. So while Thoth is out cruising around in this hologram that we live in, in his energy body, and he's not bound by these dimensional barriers. Primarily because of the nature and origin of his energy, and we'll talk about that later. Anyway, he starts studying planets. The first thing that he comes across is the laws that are governing planetary cycles, and is equating those with cycles that mankind experiences. So he's beginning to give you the idea of this concept of as above, so below, right? And then he goes further, describing the effects of how the laws are working that create beauty in the cosmos. So the idea of structural symmetry and beauty being related are primal in mankind, and it's manifested in our dating behavior, if I can go there.
Sure.
When we look at a mate, and I'm a guy, so I'm going to talk from a guy's standpoint. When you look at a woman, you look at structural symmetry, but you don't realize that's what you're doing. Are the two halves of the face symmetrical? Is it symmetrical of the size of the head relative to the torso, and the torso to the pelvis, and blah blah blah? And a lot of this vetting of the other species actually goes way back in our evolutionary history, and that our visual system we use to determine what was the best optimal partner to mate with in order to minimize the possibility of having some problem or defect. So
the Italians, Gerald, the Italians have this the Fibonacci formula for beauty. They use it 1.6128 whatever it is.
1.618.
Yeah, 1.618. They use that Fibonacci ratio for models and everything. And when they take photographs of the models, and They measure the width of the mouth to the width of the face, and they see are they structurally symmetrical to the Fibonacci. And when they look for somebody who's perfectly beautiful, I think Liz Hurley, the model Liz Hurley, they said that she is symmetrically perfect to the Fibonacci ratio. And the Italians pioneered that in that research.
Yeah, that's neat, and it brings corroboration to this idea of beauty. Then also the Egyptians used this as well. We talked about them measuring from the head to the ground, and then the belly button to the ground for a woman. It was slightly different for a man. But if that ratio was 1.618, then top to bottom along the pivotable axis of the pelvis, they were symmetrical. And that was a measure of beauty. So the idea of beauty having to do with symmetry is quite interesting. So he sees this in the cosmos as well. And I'll bring up something quite interesting that I discovered in my research. Is that I was into sacred geometry for a while, and I was looking for 1.618 in different places. And of course it shows up all over in the human body, design of animals, plants, everywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what about in the planets? So I started looking at the orbits of the planets around the sun and taking their ratio of their number of days it takes to go around and then dividing them. And it turned out that Venus and the Earth have a ratio of 1.618. Wow. They're the only ones that do.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was really, really kind of interesting. So he's talking about beauty in the cosmos. And then, interestingly enough, he goes on to say that on these various planets he encountered a variety of races, and he notes that some of them are evolving quickly and others were lagging severely. So the idea of the evolution of consciousness, and I think that's what he's talking about, really, not so much in their physical form, but in their evolution of consciousness. And I'll bring a little more clarity to that in the next bullet here. So he's noting that there's, a variety of success and failure. Well, as part of the holographic model we're going to talk about later, there was a lower dimension that involved 14 different divisions in that dimension, and then a parallel dimension to the Earth that had 9 divisions. And this was the 9 underworld frequencies from the Mayans that mapped to the what I believe are the brainwave frequencies that allowed you access to these parallel dimensions. Mm-hmm. So he's on these other planets, and then he kind of makes a generalized statement about how they're doing in their evolution of consciousness. He states that each race was stated to be struggling upward toward the light, but experiencing these up and down cycles, living through darkness and incrementally gaining light. So they didn't have a smooth path either, so it's like, oh, they had to suffer too, and it's not just on the Earth, it's everywhere. So that's a really interesting thing to know, I think. Wow. And then he describes this really advanced race that he encounters that had freed themselves from ether and space-time, yet they were still men. They weren't in their energy body form.
I was actually thinking during the week, Gerald, and I do that. I think about not just your show, obviously, but all the shows that I do, but I'll always stop for a moment and I'll think about a show I did 2 weeks ago or something. That something just hits me. I do a lot of ancient civilization shows, but I was sitting there thinking, about this the whole ancient civilization genre and UFO contact, ancient alien contact. And I was thinking, if the Anunnaki came here, I used to always think that, okay, we were enslaved, but I think we were enslaved because that's the way we were designed, and we were enslaved because, I don't think they could have done anything else with us. I don't think they could have given us what they had. I mean, if you were to use a primate, I think they probably gave us the best they could, Gerald. I don't think they tweaked us or dumbed us down enough. It's just my own prerogative. I mean, I think they wanted us to be functional and just functional enough, but I really do think they want us to evolve, and I really do think that they want us to, not now, I think that we've been hijacked along the way, but I think originally an advanced culture would want us to evolve. And I look at the people on the planet now, and this is my little epiphany. I look at them all now, Gerald. I don't think if you could prove everything quantifiable in your face science, about what we're talking about here today, and say, look, we can evolve, this is your thing, most people would just they would rubbish the evidence and go and beat each other to death or something. You know, I think that most of this planet, Gerald, are just ignorant. They just want to beat and kill and aggressive to each other and vicious. And I don't say that that's all the human race. I think there's altruistic people there too. I think we have both ends of the spectrum. We really, really do. And I just think, you know, I think we're up against it for advancing ourselves. I think we're up against it. Are we going to cut to the chase? And it's just when you're talking about civilizations out there, some are evolving quickly and some are lagging. I do think the human race is lagging desperately. I don't think it helps if we're being laced with fluoride, Gerald. I don't think it's all down to us being, you know, our human nature. But, you know, most of the people in the world are just ignorant to this, Gerald. They really, really are. And I think that's in us as a race. It's in us. Whether we were designed that way or tweaked that way, I don't know. But it's definitely in us, Gerald. I have no doubt about that.
Well, you know, if we made reading a priority on this planet for every being, that would change a lot. Do you realize how many people on the planet can't even read? So, I mean, you're fighting a massive uphill battle in being able to disseminate knowledge to somebody who can't read.
Yeah. Reading is the key, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So, while he's out meeting these various races in his out-of-body state, he says he met this really advanced race, and they constructed a planet of their own. And it was quite amazing. He said they were advanced, outstripping others in science, mighty in wisdom, the son of the stars. And he actually says he saw them create cities while he was observing them, made of precious metals and jewels, using the power of their minds only. They had overcome the need for toil. And you'll hear that in the account. That is just beyond science fiction. You know, it's like, wow, these guys, you know, they're not just going like on Star Trek from point A to point B through a little chamber that dematerializes them and rematerializes them. They're using the power of the creator of all rules of law of creation of matter and creating all their civilization using their mind.
Wow.
That's, you know, either you just go right there, you go, wow. You're talking about advanced. I mean, yeah, we're definitely in kindergarten compared to this.
What do you think about plants, Gerald? Do you think plants are more evolved than us in terms of whatever, genes or?
I'll be kind of rudimentary with that question. And something that comes to my mind is, think about plants and their ability to find the vertical line, no matter where they're planted, such that they feel gravity and operate in accordance with it. You know, I'm not talking about vines that wrap around. I'm talking about straight trees. So on the side of the hill, they do it. Well, as a structural integrator for almost 10 years, and you know, once you learn to see structurally, it never goes away. When I look at the human race from a structural standpoint, I would say that your statement is correct, that even plants have found a synchronous relationship with the most powerful force on the planet, yet humans have not.
Yeah.
And I'm talking in mass. Very few humans have.
Even the rice plant has 60,000 genes, twice what we have.
Yeah. So from that standpoint alone, and I made this point in my first book, The Annunaki and Nibiru, where in the New Testament, I believe it's the New Testament, almost all of them. I think there were 11 verses where Enlil, I think, was chastising Enki about his primitive worker design, and he called us stiff-necked people over and over again, 11 times. So I started thinking about that, and listen, as a structural integrator, after people go through advanced levels of work, and it takes years to get out of your patterns that you have wrapped up in your body that's been happening to you since birth, okay? He was calling you a stiff-necked person. Okay,
yeah.
So, you know, this is a real question of Enki's ability in a being that could be in this gravity field that integrated correctly in their bodies, and I think he's really chastising them by doing this. And the reality is, what I was going to say as a structural integrator, I remember it now, is after you chase all of the patterns out of the body. And it's viewed in a segmented way. But by the time that you get to the point where you're trying to stack the head on top, now that you have a stable base below to do it, almost all of the issues in the body end up in the neck. So the idea of him calling us a stiff-necked being, I totally get that. And anybody who's ever done years and years of yoga knows that the neck holds all kinds of stiffness. It takes a lot of work to end up with a front, a back, and two sides to the neck. That's what it's supposed to look like, okay? So you got me off on structural integration. We better get back to the Atlanteans here. Anyway, so this advanced race that had outstripped everyone else in science was using the advanced power of their mind to create cities. Well, here later in the tablet, we're going to find out that this dweller of Atlantis was doing the same thing. So I mentioned to you privately a couple times, and even on air, that we, in this holographic model of thought that Thoth gave us of the universe, he talks about the creator of all living in this circle of light, separated from Arulu by another dimension, so by two more dimensions. So you end up with the circle of light being in the 9th dimension, two more dimensions in between that he calls chaos, and then Arulu's on the 6th, 2 at the Duat, and then you end up the 3rd on Earth, okay? Just to kind of get that in your mind. Well, 2 of the blocks that the creator of all was responsible for, one was the law of the creation of time. In the Emerald Tablets later, Thoth describes the constructs the creator of all used to establish time. And so I drew a little box in my holographic universe model, and two of them really stood out to me. One was the law of creation of time, or the law of time, and the other was the law of creation of matter. So everything according to this, cosmogony, started in the void, and all that was there was a circle of light with the creator of all in his model. Okay, so there was a vibration created to create time, and then there was this other box, which was the law of creation of matter. And I've been really focused on that one because, like in the last show, I brought up, the saber-toothed tiger that could be manifested in the Hunger Games. And actually, it wasn't just a hologram; it actually could interact with the protagonist and her teammates and kill them. So either this is complete fantasy, or they were manifested using the law of the creation of matter such that they operated the same way you did.
To add to
and
that,
this is where the idea of an avatar really starts blowing your mind.
Just to add to that, Gerald, I know we spoke about this off air, but mind creating matter. I have less of a problem with that than I did a long time ago, about 10 years ago. I mean, I first was aware of this from the Krishna faith. And the Christians believe that consciousness can create matter. And when I first heard that, I thought it was incredibly strange, incredibly unusual. I didn't ditch it. I didn't dismiss it. I just didn't understand it. But I understood that this person was getting this from somewhere. He even had a problem with it, but, he followed his faith. And I know the Buddhist faith have this as well. In reality,
there's been some charlatans, but there's been some real documented beings who seem to have the capability of manifesting matter, just like Thoth is saying here.
It's incredible, Gerald. It's incredible.
It's mind blowing. So, I'm not going to talk too much about my source just now, but I'm going to once I get cleared and it's okay.
Sure.
But I've been fishing around to fill in those 2 boxes in my holographic universe model. One, the law of time; the other one, the law of creation of matter. And the law of creation of matter one was so obvious to me because they kept toying around with it in these Hollywood movies, talking about avatars and, is it a hologram or is it real? Well, when it becomes real, that it's real flesh and blood and that the energy is just animating it, all of a sudden you realize that you're an avatar too. And this is where it gets crazy because you have to understand that in order to use the rules that he's talking about here to get out of your state of illusion.
When you think about it, Gerald, this is a mind trip, but when you think about it, we believe, Western science, the non-religious, the non-faith, the hardcore scientists that don't believe in consciousness or spirituality, they think that the brain creates consciousness, okay? But in their model, basically you have biological matter creating this illusion of consciousness or whatever. It's generated in the brain. However, in what we're talking about, where carnation, incarnation, whatever species, whatever being in the galaxy is coming in and doing this, but if you're able to create the matter, basically this thought process or this consciousness that creates the matter is actually just creating the vehicle that you're stepping into. And when you're in that vehicle, you can then create the more matter in a different way to get back out of the vehicle. It's just moving into a vehicle that you created. And it goes hand in hand with incarnation. So if you believe in incarnation or reincarnation, you shouldn't have any problem with mind creating matter. It shouldn't be a problem for you.
Well, we've gone to the intermediate step and seen the work from Dr. Masaru Emoto, who noticed that thoughts and words have an impact on water when it's frozen. It changes.
Oh, isn't that incredible stuff, Gerald?
Well, so now all of a sudden you realize thoughts are real things that are electrical signals that are doing things out in the cosmos. Okay. And
you know the ultimate.
So I want to talk a little bit about that.
Just to add to that, Gerald. Go ahead. The 6 scientists did an experiment where they held beryllium atoms in a magnetic field, and just to contain them there, and that they willed, the 6 scientists willed the beryllium atoms to heat up, and they did, and they could measure this and quantifiable, repeated time and time again. They kept these beryllium atoms at a certain temperature, and as soon as they walked into the room and willed them to heat up, the beryllium atoms heated up, and they could measure this time and time again. So that there's actually a couple of experiments to show thought experiments affecting reality.
Well, according to Thoth, light is mankind's heritage, and darkness, this stuff that keeps us in illusion, is only a veil, meaning it's temporary. So he's saying man is truly spaceborn, and that our soul is a sun soul, a child, and we're a child of the stars just like they are. So what does that imply for us functionally as co-creators with the creator of all? What capabilities were given to them were they given to us? And so what you're generally starting to touch on, I think, is, you mentioned these couple of kids that were born in New York, I think you said.
Oh, yeah.
That were able to speak Aramaic to themselves with each other and had never been exposed to the language. Well, in general, there are all kinds of anomalous capabilities that are showing up in humans and have for some time that really can't be explained. So in general, what is our co-creation functional limitation? Can we just create our own reality by choosing fate over destiny, and it affects the state of our lives? Or, as what this document's saying, that if light is mankind's heritage, that we too, as these children of the stars, can create matter from our thoughts, just like these guys that were mentioned were doing. And one of the other beings that was doing this, and I think we talk about it in just a minute, was the dweller of Unal, who is the dweller of Atlantis. And I got to go find out if there was more than one deity that ever occupied the Temple of Atlantis, because to my knowledge there was only Poseidon. So that the idea that this being is dwelling in the Temple of Atlantis, I have trouble not believing it's just another name for Enki, or he's manifest as an avatar into another body, or whatever it is. So I'm a little confused on that, and the depth of this stuff takes you pretty deep down the rabbit hole. So it's an idea I'm toying with. Okay.
Sure.
So I want to ask again: do we create our reality from choices, or is there more? Can we somehow use our thoughts in combination with some other energy source that we don't understand to take the precursor to all matter, which is light, and have it manifest in a form that is solid, that you can touch? That's the question. Now, we have some evidence around the world, from these advanced Tibetans and Buddhists that have been documented to do this. Some of them, like I said, I think are charlatans. But others have been scientifically investigated, and there's videos of them on YouTube. I mean, this is incredible stuff. Well, it goes back to this question: can we use light to encode objects in this reality matrix that we're in. And if you knew how to do that, you'd fill in that box in my holographic diagram, where it's a law of the creator of all, because that's how he's creating matter. Or she, or it, the creator of all. That's how the creator of all is creating matter. Mm. So, as co-creators with the creator of all, my premise to you is based on this document and some other evidence we have, and it's a long shot, okay? But it looks like we have the ability to create matter ourselves if we knew how to do it. Mm. Now,
just because we don't logically have an answer figured out, it's because we're trapped in this Newtonian world. I know we've entered the quantum age 80 years ago, or 90 years ago now, Gerald. I know that. But it seems like it never happened to some people. The quantum physicists seem to have kept it to themselves. They have a lid on it because they don't like the philosophical nature of it. And there's a war that's been going on for 95 years in quantum physics, and it's still there. It's stagnant. Since the time Niels Bohr and Einstein died, they were still wrestling to the day they died with these fundamental questions of what the hell quantum physics is. But look at the wave duality of nature of light. Look at the quantum world, and most of the space of atoms are empty, Gerald. We touch the table.
Right. You know? We talked about that last time. And the reality is, if you knew how to generate the energy that was causing the bonds to happen in that substance, whether it's cymatics or whatever it is, you'd be one step closer to understanding this quantum encryption that's going on, that's taking the properties of matter and turning it into a form.
Of which all atoms are vibrating as well. Everything's crystal matrices and everything, whatever that molecular array is, everything is vibrating. It's very, very fuzzy. Electrons are going around the atom. They're vibrating as well. You can't even pin them down. They seem to be this particle wave duality, and they're fuzzy, but they don't really have a location. And the more you look at the microscopic level, the more you see what we're talking about right here, Gerald.
Yeah. And I don't know if process I sent you, it's 9 steps that are used in a very, very detailed document that I got, and I've been studying it ever since.
It's awesome.
But it basically insinuates, without doing it step by step, it basically insinuates that we as humans have the ability, through using mental processes and an energetic kind of computer that's built into us, that can actually convert energy forms that are around us into tangible matter. And this goes, and I synthesized this document that I received, and I'm not going to talk about the source just yet. It's just mind blowing, this data that basically says with practice that any one of us could do this. And it has a lot to do with understanding the nature of light, the nature of your bioenergetic construct, knowing how to assess your energy state and change it. And when you figure this out, basically there's a state that they talk about you're able to take yourself into, where you can manifest any matter that you want, whether it's animate or inanimate matter, just like the creator of all.
It's amazing. It took me research and pursuit of knowledge into spirituality, and it took me a research and science background in quantum physics to accept it, Gerald. Unfortunately, I wish I could have just accepted this for my own little logical reasons, but I couldn't, Gerald. But
yeah. Well, when I synthesized this down, and I think I'm going to save this for the conference, actually, to really illuminate this data. But I would say it has a lot to do with the understanding of quantum physics. Mm.
Wow.
Because this is one area that my energy equation never took into account is, what about the quantum effects? What are the effects there? And I never took my research that far. But this answers the question for me. So in my mind, that block from the creator of all, the law of creation of matter, it's filled in my head. Now, whether we can all do it or not, that remains to be seen, but I'm sure going to try.
Sure. Oh wow, Gerald, awesome stuff. And can you talk about this process, the light encoded reality matrix? Do you want to go into detail?
If you want me to, now I will. And now what I'll do is I'll give the synthesized, summarized version.
If you could do it in about 10 minutes, Gerald. I'll give you 10 minutes.
I don't know if I could do it in 10 minutes. Maybe we got to leave that as a teaser and come back and save that one for the conference or something, because that one is just profound.
Yeah, it's quite detailed.
Well, no, let's save it. I'll just put it out as a teaser that we have a formula that if it's true, that with some very serious practice, that basically replicates what the Tibetan monks are doing to produce matter out of the ether. And it's backed up by science. And when you see it, you're going to go, wow, I can't even believe this is one of the capabilities we've had, and we didn't even know it.
So, the Tibetan monks are amazing.
Let's save that one, because it's so detailed. I think we could do an entire show just on that one.
You know, the Tibetan monks can go over some Himalayan passes, and they just go up in normal robes and normal clothes. There's people with the best equipment, they can't even make the journey. There's certain passes that the Tibetan monks can go over in the Himalayas. And how they do it?
It has a lot to do with their understanding of their body and their thermoregulation system.
Well, they meditate and they hold a candle flame inside their body and they use that to warm themselves. They manifest their own heat. It's incredible the stuff that these guys do.
It's absolutely incredible. I've always been drawn to those kind of extemporaneous human capabilities. It's like, wow, could I ever do that? So let's save the light encoded reality matrix for another time. I think we got so much data to cover between now and the next tablet that we'll put it out as a teaser, but I can't wait to share that. As a matter of fact, I can't even wait till after I've practiced it more and more and more. But perhaps someday, maybe in this lifetime, I'll be able to master it.
Well, I guess if you want to wrap up on tablet 4 then, Gerald, before I play the narration.
Well, there's one more item, if we've got time for it, I wanted to talk about. Basically, Thoth describes that we can occupy various forms depending on what planet we're on. And he describes as relating this above and below thing. He talks about our bodies as planets revolving around their central sun. Right? So now think about, and I think we did the Merkaba, maybe I didn't talk about it enough, but basically in the last few steps from 15 to 18, 17 for those who are not ready for 18, but 15 through 17, it has to do with spinning Merkaba energy fields with the male and female star tetrahedron. So here's another referral to this central sun, this kind of idea of the energy that we see in torsion field effect, as we also see it in your body. Okay, so wow. I think the Merkaba meditation is even more important for that reason. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so one other thing he tells us is we've got to be open to this radiant frequency, this energy that's emanating from the flower of life. Now, he talks about this being a crystal that's underground in the halls of the Mente. And it's simultaneous, we must be hit with a false Merkaba field, or a false flower of life emanation that's being generated around the earth as in a kind of a dodecahedron pattern, like Travalo talks about, and other scientists who've discovered this as well. I found a scientific article on this as well recently.
Sure.
So somehow he's telling you got to quiet your mind and tune into the flower of life, because this is part of what wakes up your energy body. So he defines this as an extension to your consciousness for those that follow the path of wisdom. So kind of think of your human antenna body, your meat modem, as an antenna that could receive energy. And this is where I got really corroboration with what was being said in the Bible, in the New Testament, in John 1:12, where it says, to all who receive him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to those that believe on his name. So he's talking about receiving power and then transforming. Well, listen to what he's saying here. He's talking about tuning into a frequency that's being transmitted in the flower of life, and then that extending your consciousness, in other words, transforming you. So there's direct correlation in my mind. Do you see that?
Gerald, I just see the whole planet with all this evidence that we're talking about. It's all there, Gerald. It's in the ancient record. It's in our present society today. I'm talking the star tetrahedron's there. The flower of life is there. All these tantalizing, the Fibonacci sequence, the manifestation of matter in the Krishna and the Buddhist faith that we're talking about. All this information is there, Gerald. It's in fragmented pieces dotted around the globes in ancient times and modern times. It's all that we're talking about. There's examples of it in effect, Gerald. I have no problem with this at all. You know, it's just people just need to assimilate this knowledge and kind of progress with it.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things he left for us that I thought was very, very spiritual. I don't know if we have time to do it, but he left us this prayer for obtaining wisdom. I think it's very beautiful. Now it's in the text that I read in the tablet, so we don't have to do it. It's going to get read anyway.
Sure.
But listen to it carefully. What he's talking about in terms of your energy body and changing. A lot of it has to do with your energy body.
This is Thoth's prayer for obtaining wisdom.
Yeah. So you'll hear that in the reading. One of his final pleas is for us to seek and know his key of wisdom, so that you can get out of this false illusion of call. He sees himself as mankind's free, agent or freer of their bondage.
Emancipator.
And you have to, when you see that, and he says it himself, when he takes on his oath and decides that this is what he's going to do. I mean, this is what Jesus and Buddha and all the other spiritual beings who came as avatars, wanted to do for mankind. So the analogy is just fantastic.
Emancipation, Gerald. That's what we're talking about. Emancipation.
Yeah. So I think now's a good time to play the text of the tablet. I think we're going to skip my analysis of it since we just kind of did it.
Sure.
And just listen to the text because it's very, very. I don't know. I think it's very deep, very, very deep.
Okay, Gerald, I'm going to play the tablet and then go to a break. But before we do, Gerald, just give us out the conference in the Yucatan details where people can catch up more details on this LERM, the light encoded matrix that we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's called the light encoding of the reality matrix. I'm going to go into that really deep. That'll be September 18th through the 24th. In Chichen Itza, in the Yucatan of Mexico. We're going to be on site at the Hacienda Chichen Itza, so there won't be any distance at all between where you're staying and where the pyramid sites are. You'll have your own private entrance there because it probably will be a crowded time of the year. I will just warn you right now, because we're coming up on the 24th, James, is the fall equinox.
23rd, 24th. I think,
I think it's the 24th.
24th.
So there's going to be a lot of visitors there during that time. So having a private entrance and not having to wait in line will be really great. I think that the stuff that we're talking about is just fabulous. And I can't wait for all the people that have already indicated that they're coming and the ones who've already signed up to come. I think they're going to really, really enjoy themselves and they're going to leave changed.
I can't wait to philosophize with like-minded people, Joe.
What more could you ask from a conference to go seeking wisdom and leave changed for the better?
I'm looking forward to philosophizing with like-minded people, Gerald. You know, it's going to be great.
Oh, absolutely. So I think with that said, you can find out more information on James's website, jamesswagger.com, or on my website, geraldclark77.com. And I think we've both done a couple of videos, put them on our YouTube channels with information on the Chichen Itza. Hey, what was the title of it that you ended up finally settling on? I really liked it.
Annunaki Realm of the Maya.
Yeah. So the idea of having the Anunnaki connection in the in the Mayan Yucatan is really important. And by the way, it connects exactly with what's said in this tablet, where these priests are sent out from Egypt to various locations. One is in South America to spawn the Maya that end up in the Yucatan. So the connection with this telling in the Emerald Tablets is really astounding.
Sure. Well, listen, Gerald, I'm going to play out the Emerald Tablet 4 and then go to break, and then we'll be back to talk about Emerald Tablet number 5.
Sounds great.
List ye, O man, to the voice of wisdom. Listen to the voice of Thoth the Atlantean. Freely I give to thee of my wisdom, gathered from time and space of this cycle, master of mysteries, son of the morning, living forever, a child of the light, shining with brightness, star of the morning. Thoth, the teacher of men, is of all. Long time ago, I in my childhood lay 'neath the stars on long-buried Atlantis, dreaming of mysteries far above men. Then in my heart grew there a great longing to conquer the pathway that led to the stars. Year after year I sought after wisdom, seeking new knowledge, following the way, until at last my soul, in great travail, broke from its bondage and bounded away. Free was I from the bondage of earthmen, free from the body I flashed through the night. Unlocked at last for me was the star space, free was I from the bondage of night. Now to the end of space sought I wisdom, far beyond knowledge of finite man. Far into space my soul traveled freely, into infinity's circle of light. Strange beyond knowledge were some of the planets, giant and great beyond dreams of men. Yet found I law in all of its beauty, working through and among them as here among men. Flashed forth my soul through infinity's beauty. Far through space I flew with my thoughts. Rested I there on a planet of beauty. Strains of harmony filled all the air. Shapes there were, moving in order, great and majestic as stars in the night. Mounting in harmony, ordered equilibrium, symbols of the cosmic, like unto law. Many the stars I passed in my journey, many the races of men on their worlds, some reaching high as stars of the morning, some falling low in the blackness of night. Each and all of them struggling upward, gaining the heights and plumbing the depths, moving at times in realms of brightness, living through darkness, gaining the light. Know, O man, that light is thine heritage, know that darkness is only a veil. Sealed in thine heart is brightness eternal, waiting the moment of freedom to conquer, waiting to rend the veil of the night. Some I found who had conquered the ether, free of space were they while they were men. Using the force that is the foundation of all things, far in space constructed they a planet. Drawn by the force that flows through the all, condensing, coalescing the ether into forms that grew as they willed. Outstripping in science they all the races, mighty in wisdom, sons of the stars. Long time I paused, watching their wisdom, saw them create from out of ether cities, gigantic of rose and gold, formed forth from the primal element, base of all matter, the ether far flung. Far in the past they had conquered the ether, freed themselves from the bondage of toil. Formed in their mind only a picture, and swiftly created it grew. Forth then my soul sped through the cosmos, seeing ever new things and old, learning that man is truly spaceborn, a son of the sun, a child of the stars. Know ye, O man, whatever form ye inhabit, surely it is one with the stars. Thy bodies are nothing but planets revolving around their central suns. When ye have gained the light of all wisdom, free shall ye be to shine in the ether, one of the suns that light our darkness, one of the spaceborn grown into light. Just as the stars in time lose their brilliance, light passing from them into the great source, so, O man, the soul passes onward, leaving behind the darkness of night. Formed forth ye from the primal ether, filled with the brilliance that flows from the source. Bound by the ether, coalesced around, yet ever it flames until at last it is free. Lift up your flame from out of the darkness, fly from the night, and ye shall be free. Traveled I through the space-time, knowing my soul at last was set free. Knowing that now might I pursue wisdom, until at last I passed to a plane, hidden from knowledge, known not to wisdom, extension beyond all that we know. Now, O man, when I had this knowing, happy my soul grew, for now I was free. Listen, ye spaceborn, listen to my wisdom. Know ye that ye too will be free? List ye again, O man, to my wisdom, that hearing you too might live and be free. Not of the earth are ye earthly, but child of the infinite cosmic light. Know ye not, O man, of your heritage? Know ye not you are truly the light? Son of the great sun, when ye gain wisdom, truly aware of your kinship with light. Now to ye I give knowledge, freedom to walk in the path I have trod, showing ye truly how by my striving I trod the path that leads to the stars. Hark ye, O man, and know of thy bondage, know how to free thyself from the toils. Out of the darkness shall ye rise upward, one with the light and one with the stars. Follow ye ever the path of wisdom, only by this can ye rise from below. Ever man's destiny leads him onward, into the curves of infinity's all. Know ye, O man, that all space is ordered, only by order are ye one with the all. Order and balance are law of the cosmos, follow and ye shall be one with the all. He who would follow the pathway of wisdom, open must he be to the flower of life, extending his consciousness out of the darkness, flowing through time and space and the all. Deep in the silence first ye must linger, until at last ye are free from desire, free from longing to speak in the silence. Conquer by silence the bondage of words, abstaining from eating until we have conquered desire for food. That is bondage of soul. Then lie ye down in the darkness, close ye your eyes from the rays of the light. Center thy soul force in the place of thine consciousness, shaking it free from the bonds of the night. Place in thy mind, place the image thou desireth. Picture the place thou desireth to see. Vibrate back and forth with thy power. Loosen the soul from out of its night. Fiercely must thou shake with all of thy power, until at last thy soul shall be free. Mighty beyond words is the flame of the cosmic, hanging in planes unknown to man. Mighty and balanced, moving in order, music of harmonies far beyond man. Speaking with music, singing with color, flame from the beginning of eternity's all. Spark of the flame art thou, O my children, burning with color and living with music. List to the voice and thou shalt be free. Consciousness free is fused with the cosmic, one with the order and law of the all. Knew ye not, man, that out of the darkness light shall flame forth, a symbol of all? Pray ye this prayer for attaining of wisdom, pray for the coming of light to the all. Mighty spirit of light that shines through the cosmos, draw my flame closer in harmony to thee. Lift up my fire from out of the darkness, the magnet of fire that is one with the all. Lift up my soul, thou mighty and potent, child of the light, turn not away. Draw me in power to melt in thy furnace, one with all things and all things in one. Fire of the life strain, and one with the brain. When ye have freed thy soul from its bondage, know that ye the darkness is gone. Ever through space ye may seek wisdom, bound not be fetters forged in the flesh. Onward and upward into the morning, free flash, O soul, to the realms of the light. Move thou in order, move thou in harmony, freely shalt move with the children of light. Seek and know ye my key of wisdom. Thus, O man, ye shall surely be free.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Capricorn Radio. This is your host James, and we are talking to today's author, Gerald R. Clark, and we are discussing the Emerald Tablets number 4 and 5, and we just are about to get into Emerald Tablet number 5, the Dweller of Uno. And are you back with me, Gerald?
I sure am, buddy. How do you hear me?
Oh, I hear you loud and clear. Wow, I'm super excited, Gerald. What an awesome show so far. Let's get into Emerald Tablet number 5, the Dweller of Uno. Yeah, this is incredible stuff, Gerald. We're getting into some really deep details. Enki's going to make an appearance here, Enlil as well. I love this analogy. Lord of the Earth, Lord of the Air, and how this all fits in with the Dweller of Uno. Just jump in there, Gerald. Let's go for it.
Okay. Well, in this tablet, the Dweller of Uno, Thoth introduces us to this heritage that leads up to the dweller of Atlantis, that goes through, and he calls him an Atlantean king, whose lineage comes through Suntal. And I made a little mistake in the book. I thought he was talking about Suntal being the Atlantean king, so a little correction there. He calls himself the Master of Unal, and he's an avatar, just like the other avatars we talked about in the last tablet, that could occupy the bodies of men. His name is Horlet, and he's declared to be the Lord of the Earth in Atlantis' day. So I heard that, I was like, wait a second. Lord of the Earth, En means Lord, and Ki is the Sumerian word for Earth. So Enki means Lord of the Earth. And that was his title before his half-brother showed up, Enlil, who means Lord, En.lil means Lord of the Air. So, he didn't arrive for another 5,000 years after Enki was here, and was already the Lord of the Earth. So, this, in my opinion, was the beginning. If it didn't already go back to Nibiru before, it was the beginning of a major functional overlapping between those two that caused this battle for the title of Lord of the Earth. And that, by the way, is rank 50 on the Annunaki Council. And Enki's rank at one point in history prior to 3760 was 40, and Enlil's was 50. So he actually was the Lord of the Air, but he also was taking over the Lord of the Earth. That's why Enki got pushed out to be the Lord of the Waters, right?
Wow. This sounds like something out of a Star Wars movie, Gerald. Lord of the Earth, Battle for the Earth, Lord of the Year, Lord of Scott.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I know. So, and eventually through my writings, I started stacking them into the Enkiite and Enlilite camp, because oftentimes these disparities occurred even among their children over whether they were in the right place in the zodiacal house to assert themselves as the new zodiacal ruler. And this brought into my whole theory about the ping-ponging back and forth between the Enkyites and the Enlilites, and the extent to which the zodiacal house was their term limits, which brings us to right now and changing over from Pisces to Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
We're the first degree of Aquarius from my calculations, and that means it's Anunnaki council change time. So all these perturbations you're seeing in the simulator, the wars and everything else, this happens between the power changes, especially when it's going from an Enkiite or an Enlilite who's bent on destruction to a more benevolent ruler like one of the kids of Enki or Enki himself that, wants the best for mankind, wants them to evolve, wants them to wake up in the simulator. And, you're going to see that in this tablet that, Thoth is, and he said it at the end of the last tablet, he viewed himself as the freer of mankind out of bondage of the illusion of Ka. So, so he felt like he was an intercessor. And as far as I'm concerned, the fact that he stepped up could have taken many other paths and decided to do that for us. That makes him a hero in my book.
Wow. Just think, astrological houses, clashes or interactions and stuff like that, but think of it on a grand scale for the change of zodiacal ages. Just think of that on a grand scale. It's the play.
Well, this Horlet guy is amazing. I'll tell you a few of his attributes. And I personally think it's an avatar of Enki himself, because there was only one god in the Atlantean temple, and that was Enki, or Poseidon, who was Enki. So this Horlet shows up, according to the story, early when the Atlanteans were first coming to power. And he brought them the knowledge and wisdom and how to get their souls on the pathway back to their light source, because he explained to them they were from this sun soul spirit just like we are. And Horlet is described as beyond Earth cycle. He wasn't from Earth, and he was claimed to have never been one with the children of men, although he was living in a body as a man among them as an avatar. So that's kind of trippy right there.
Wow.
Right? So this Horlet guy chooses 3 disciples on Atlantis to train for 15 years as light bearers and teachers. to the rest of mankind. And they live on this island of Unal. And actually, one place it's spelled Unal, and the other place it's spelled Undal. And I got a little confused in my book. I don't know which is the right one. So, Horlet, this master Horlet, has the power of what's called Yolton. Lytolan. Now, this is the power to manifest matter with his mind that we were talking about in the light encoding reality of the matrix rules. Okay? And I'm dying to share that, but I'm going to hold it out as a teaser. Okay? But if you study those rules, you could have the power of Yolton. That's what he's telling you here. Okay? So this guy is pretty powerful. And he chooses these 3 disciples, trains them for 15 years, sticks them out on this island, and then he segregates Atlantis into 10 sections with 10 rulers. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, wait a second, where have I seen that before? And I'm going to jump forward just a little bit from the text, from the Critias dialogue.
Oh, Plato.
Yeah, where Plato is talking about how Atlantis is segregated, that there were some kingly actors on this Atlantean stage that came out of my other book. So, we know that Poseidon and Enki had 5 pairs of sons, 10 total, who became the kings and rulers of Atlantis. And the eldest one was Atlas, the son of Poseidon and Cleito. Okay, so basically what that comes down to is these offspring, because Cleito was a primitive worker. She was not Annunaki bloodline. So these offspring are demigods, and in the tablets, Horlet apparently segregates Atlantis into 10 sections with 10 rulers, and he describes them as being ruled by the children of men. So these offspring of Enki with Cleito actually are, closer to men than they are to Annunaki. So I thought that was interesting that those two correlated, those stories. Okay? So this Horlet builds his own temple, and he describes it as mile upon mile, you'll hear this in the reading later, of buildings, using this mind power of Yolton that he has to create material forms, both animate and inanimate, but primarily focused on the cities and the dwellings that he's building with his mind. So that's kind of amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, well, this shows up as something that apparently, if Thoth gets taught this ability to do this, don't you think his dad probably had it as well?
Oh, there's a lineage. There's definitely a lineage.
Yeah. So, when he handed off the caduceus to him, he probably taught him everything he knew, just like he taught the Adapa a significant amount of knowledge. Now, don't go looking for therapy. Okay, I'm bringing up Adapa again. He was taught a lot. He was taught a lot of knowledge too, so much so that he was able to interact with, according to the story,
poor little
the wind,
Adapa.
the simulator, and start it and stop it. So that's pretty amazing.
Wow. Yeah, in terms of Adapa, I think, like I say, I think again, this incarnation scenario and humankind, I think it wasn't just as simple as tweaking us to exactly what they want us as slaves. Yes, that was probably an element of what they were doing, but I think, well, there's a playoff. You can't say we want to give you the consciousness and we want to do all this as the role, or you can't say I only want to do this slave species to go and mine the goods. I think you're doing both together, whether you like it or not. It's a full package, And
well, actually, I think there was a clever piece of that, because I'm sure that they faced that problem. They said, how can we give them intelligence and memory such that they're doing these particular tasks, they're going to remember what they did. So, eventually, with reflective consciousness and memory, you're going to go, well, comparing and contrasting, hey, we're enslaved, and they'd figure it out. So this is where the key of these latent circuits comes in, to slowly allow the being to wake up out of their state of illusion to the point where incrementally they got ready for the big aha and break the God spell and realize, hey, I've been enslaved all along. And I think a lot of people are waking up to the external reality of their enslavement in society, but it goes much deeper than that.
putting those triggers in, though, Gerald, unless there's something like a galactic trigger like we talked about, I mean, let's say there's symbolism, for example, and I know Thoughts was into a symbolism. Let's say symbolism is a reactive mechanism to help you. And look how much symbolism's in our world. Our world runs on symbolism now. Whether we
if you and I actually got an article from Dr. Richard Allen Miller, who was friends with Timothy Leary and had exposure to these 8 circuits that he actually called parallel dimensions. He viewed them as various dimensions of reality as we change consciousness as these circuits are activated, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Wow.
But these circuits, as you recall, some of them were sensitive to various things, and the archetypes was one, the symbolism was another one. And if you go back in your life, you can probably see at the points where you were exposed to those kind of things and see if it had a different effect on your path.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm just thinking of the Atlantis story echoing inside the Emerald Tablets. It's, there's parallels there, you know?
Say that one more time.
There's parallels of the Atlantis story inside the Emerald Tablets. It's parallel there.
Well, parallel, I mean, the guy is calling himself Thoth the Atlantean. And here in this tablet, he talks about what went wrong on Atlantis, precisely what went wrong, and then what was done about it. So, you know, the mystery about how Atlantis was covered by the waves and all, he tells you exactly here. So, it's like one of those things, you know, he said in a previous tablet, hey, 36,000 years ago, right before I went to the halls of Amenti, I built the lion body on the top with my face, and I built a Giza pyramid to commemorate the entrance to my underground halls of Amenti. Now, I've showed you on the Zodiac that it agrees with that. A couple other people have as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we still don't believe it. Why? I mean, here's the author who's talking in first-person account. This isn't somebody writing about it hundreds of years later like we have in the New Testament and such. This is the first-person account from the being named Thoth, who we know as Ningshita, who did our genetic upgrade. Now, you either dismiss it or you believe what he's telling you. And when I read this the first time, it was so science fictional, I had trouble getting my head around it, really. Sure. And I wasn't really at the point where I truly understood who Thoth was. I hadn't connected him to the Sumerian story with Ningshita, who was Enki's Poseidon's son. So then when I read this, it started to make a lot more sense. Yeah. And it makes more sense every time I read it, actually.
You know, I did a show on Ed Malkowski is his name. He has a book, Ancient Egypt, 39,000 BC. The History, Technology, and Philosophy of Civilization X. You got to read that, Gerald. It's
actually, I watched the show that you did with him, but I have not read his stuff.
Well,
so, you know, all of a sudden here he is saying, hey, you know, Egypt, I'm 39,000. Well, that falls perfectly within the time when Thoth says he left Atlantis, which was 50,000 years ago, and went to the land of Egypt, ruled for 16,000 years. So it completely envelops the 39,000 year time marker that he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's correct.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So, there's some other kind of neat things that come out of, this tablet. This Horlet being, first they call him Horlet, and then he starts referring to him as the dweller of Unal. And he's calling him the dweller because he's occupying this temple, okay? Now remember, there's these 3 light beings that he's trained also that are living on the island of Unal. Well, it gets confusing to me whether the temple that he's in is the same as the one that Thoth gets initiated in a little bit later. So I have to look at it a few more times. But Thoth is summoned by one of these 3 teachers of Horlets to come and meet him in the temple. And he's going to give him a special function as one of the children of light and also a keeper of the records of wisdom. And he's to be used as an instrument to preserve the Atlantean wisdom through the ages. So, you know, we're not just skirting around the the idea of Atlantis, he's talking directly about, this is where I was born, and this is what was going on there, and here's what was going down relative to the people that were running the place. And I'm having first-hand interaction with them because I'm royalty, basically.
Wow.
Why else would he be having this kind of liberty to have interaction with these high-level priests or beings that are from another dimension in the temple? That could only be because he's the son of the Poseidon himself. And so this is kind of a crazy theory of mine, but I know that Atlantis was ruled by Poseidon, and we know what his temple was like, that he had 10 kids, and they became the ruler, just like this document says. So ultimately what that means to me is that I think Horlet is an avatar of Enki.
Mm.
And so he's also called the Dweller of Unal, okay? So that's really an important name that comes up in a little while.
5 sets of twins, 10 kids, 5 sets of twins, yeah?
Yeah. And it matches exactly with the 10 divisions that Horlet did here. So, anyway, so Thoth dwelt in this temple at Atlantis, studying until he says he became one with the light. Okay? And he basically, even prior to that, he refers to himself as a master of cycles. After, I guess, leaving his body and learning about all the different planetary wobbles and cycles that fit together, I guess he did this in order to make sense of the encounter he has later in the halls of Amenti. And so he says he blasted an underground tunnel where the Sphinx is now to the halls of Amenti so that he could have access to this portal area where the Flower of Life was. And apparently they had access to it from where Atlantis is into this underground area as well. So it must have been a massive underground tunnel.
How big do you think underneath the Sphinx this place is, Gerald? How big?
Well, one of the specials I looked at from a guy named Dr. Jim Hertog, who says he had access to the Silas radar data that was gathered under the Egyptian president for about 30 years. He says he has access to this, indicating that the size of the halls of Amenti and whatever surrounds it, this underground city below the Giza pyramid, and the Sphinx is so large it fills the entire Nile Valley.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it must be a massive cave system, Gerald. Natural cave system.
Well, I think they had underground capabilities of digging very vast spaces using their technology that made it quite easy.
Mm.
Yeah. So anyway, so Thoth says he did that, blasted a space in an underground tunnel to enable him to go to the halls of Amenti. And you remember earlier he's saying he had to go there every 100 years out of 1,000, expose himself to the Flower of Life, and that rejuvenates his body. Mm. And also,
I have to jump in there, Gerald. I actually have a video on Capricorn TV. It's about drilling underneath the paws of the Sphinx by Zahi Hawass. It's rare footage that's been in the archive, and I have it on a YouTube video. But I covered this story. But Edgar Casey basically predicted something underneath the paws of the Sphinx, a chamber.
Yeah. Well, it gets better than that. Later in the tablet here, and you'll see it when he reads it, he talks about, and we're getting ahead of ourselves, but he talks about burying a spaceship underneath the Sphinx.
Wow.
his spacecraft.
Wait for this, Gerald. Wait for this. Okay, so does it, Casey has...
Wait for that, but so the next thing that we get into, now Thoth has been traveling out of his body all over the galaxy and the cosmos, learning about all the rules of planets and evolution and consciousness and all that stuff. And then he gets brought back to Atlantis, summoned by one of the 3 disciples of the Dweller, brought into the temple, and then he gets, he gets exposed to the idea that these elite beings are seeking higher knowledge. These are the people who got prideful and arrogant on Atlantis. Okay, they got rich and they got prideful and base, according to Plato.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yeah. So when this happened, they were seeking even higher knowledge, and these elite, and they opened a dark portal that was forbidden to man. So apparently they were reaching out through some portal to another being to get more knowledge than what they thought they were getting on Atlantis. That's the bottom line. Well, according to Thoth, about this time, this dweller of Atlantis, or Unal, is, as an avatar, is sleeping in this container that he calls an Agwanti chamber. Okay? Well, just because he's in there doesn't mean he's not aware, and he's apparently out roaming the area as an avatar, keeping an eye on everything, right? That's what he's doing. And he says he detects these guys opening this portal, this dark portal that was forbidden. And immediately when he discovered this, he headed back to his body and then entered the halls of Amente, where the lords of the 9 cycles, remember only number 3 through 7 is there. There's 7 of them. But they call them the lords of the 9 cycles. Well, he approaches them, has counsel with them, and then tells them and coordinates with them to change the angular momentum and spin rate of the Earth suddenly, such that the waves that are generated by this sudden stoppage overrun the area where they've opened this portal, including Atlantis, and close this dark portal. And so this is what he does. I mean, this is crazy, you know. Now you think about this, who has the in the Sumerian account, who was designated as the Lord of the Waters? That was Enki. So the fact that he raised up this water from the deep and caused this flood is quite telling. And now you see that it was done against these dark forces. It wasn't truly designed to punish mankind, as was told in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is why they knew it was coming, just because they generated it.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So it caused major storms and all kinds of problems when they did this. Well, when this happened, right after Atlantis was destroyed, apparently only the island of Unal lay there, and its temple was still there. And Thoth was summoned by the dweller, which was really amazing. He goes in there and basically gets his mission. It's absolutely fabulous, the telling. I'm gonna let the audiobook do the telling, but try to visualize what's going on here. It is amazing, the energy interactions he's having that then transform him into an eternal being. So this is where it happens. So then once that happens, this dweller takes some of the survivors of Atlantis, according to them, takes all the records that they can get, including several weapons and magic instruments that belong to Thoth, and he tells them to take all this stuff based on this new mission that he signed up to be the teacher of men. And this dweller tells him, yeah, well, you're going to be on call, and you're going to be the light that shines through the darkness through all the ages that are to come, until a time when it's time for man to achieve light.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really quite very prophetic. So he talks about leaving Atlantis, getting in the ship, flying with his crew eastward in the morning, arriving in Egypt, and it gets pretty interesting from there. And talking about putting his aircraft beneath a rock and then building the Sphinx on top of it with the lion body and the head of a man, which is his, along with the Giza pyramid. And it's actually just absolutely amazing. And then it gets even better. He doesn't just hide it. He gives you kind of an Indiana Jones scavenger hunt set of clues to go and find them and use them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of amazing.
You know, when you look at the ancient Egyptian text, Gerald, and the Book of the Dead, the Book of the Duat, the pyramid text, and you know, they want to become a star. They want to transcend and go to the stars. And when they die, and it's and the weighing of the heart against the feather of truth, and purgatory, and going through all these different gates, like in the Book of the Dead, and it's incredible that sophisticated knowledge they have of journeying from the afterlife, even how they mummified the dead, the science of that alone is incredible. But all of this lineage that they have is in fact a lineage that comes from deep antiquity. It doesn't just arrive overnight, Gerald. How long?
Well, now you realize that all this knowledge that landed in Egypt came from the first alchemist, Thoth, who brought it there.
Exactly.
Who was Thoth the Atlantean.
Exactly.
So the fact his name was Thoth in Atlantis, and his name was Thoth, the god of wisdom and knowledge in Egypt, that's...
How long? Just the question.
Even a name change, it's exactly the same name.
The question is, Gerald, I mean, if you didn't have this story of Thoth the Atlantean, what we're talking about today, and you just remove that from the equation, I mean, how long would it take an Egyptian civilization to come up with this philosophy of the afterlife? I mean, it's so sophisticated and so detailed.
Well, it's not just the afterlife. It has to do with the law of continuous creation, which they were masters of. The Egyptians knew the law of continuous creation of matter.
Mm.
Matter turns into energy and then turns back into matter. Well, that's what we're saying with this light encoding of the reality matrix, that the creator of all clearly has that capability. Some of these beings who have the power of Yolton have it. We've seen some Tibetan monks and Buddhist monks that have demonstrated it, whether you believe it or not.
Do you think about the mummification process, Gerald, in terms of, look, I mean, you've got ancient Egypt, Peru, you've got the Tarim Basin in China, with these Celtic-looking, blonde-haired, big-nosed, tall people that were mummified as well. But this mummification all around the globe, even in Tenerife, I believe, as well. But do you think that they were preserving the physical body so that that matter is kept intact as best as it can, so that perhaps when they go back into the next part of their journey into the afterlife, that they remember who they are because the physical body is still intact, it doesn't decay?
Well, that's probably the belief, but from what I've now analyzed, and you'll see this later when Thoth gives you lessons about the end of your life and what to do and so on and so forth, he doesn't treat the body that way. He treats it as a simple instantiation of a meat modem that is transient, that can be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of trying to preserve the body, come back and use it, take all the artifacts with you into another dimension, I think that's just a lot of misunderstanding.
Well, no, not necessarily that, Gerald, but the fact that the body is preserved in its physical form.
Yeah, well, it doesn't go with you into another dimension. So the idea that it would potentially be reoccupied if you came back.
No, not necessarily reoccupied. Perhaps that it's still in its same physical shape or physical form, and it doesn't decay into nothing. That it's still there. Perhaps there's a remembering process. Maybe you don't have the full skill set to do this, like we're talking, Gerald. Maybe it's easier to remember who you are if your physical body is still intact.
Well, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but there actually is direct discussion of that and the process that Thoth instructs you through a procedure, like he does like a scientist in a lot of other ways. He tells you exactly what to do to preserve your consciousness at death, so that if you do come back into a body, that you have your full consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So if you knew that, I don't think you would be trying to preserve. I don't truly understand. I think they had not truly understood the laws of continuous creation, such that they were worried about the body and the illusion of cause. It truly is a transient thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if they were to come back, I think they could recreate a new body.
Sure.
So the idea of having to preserve this and I don't know. I think it's a little cargo cultish, and I think they may have been exposed to some of the Annunaki advanced beings that were able to reincarnate in a very short period of time. They oftentimes did the dying, rising God thing, where they would die and reincarnate within 3 days. And the whole body would be reincarnated too. So maybe they got some of their ideas from that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Incredible stuff, Gerald. Incredible stuff.
Okay. So now we've got this problem where Atlantis has fallen. Thoth is headed over to the land of the hairy barbarians, and he's there to, on behalf of the dweller of Unal, who I believe is Enki, to preserve the Atlantean wisdom and reassert the pathway to light for the beings that are left on the planet.
Wow. Incredible story, Gerald. I mean, this is, for me, this is nice to see the prelude to what we know. I mean, look at ancient Egypt, look at the technology, look at the story just emerges, and we're missing the most important part. It's like we start in the middle of the story, and here we have the prelude now, Gerald.
Yeah, well, he's giving you the whole history. He's giving it to in his first-hand account. This is first-hand account. That's why it's so much more profound to me. You know?
Yeah.
And functionally, he says, you know, you remember back when Horus was battling with Seth over the upper and lower part of Egypt, back in the Egyptian pyramid wars, and it was mentioned that Seth was flying around in some craft, and that Horus also had a craft that was fashioned by Thoth, and because of the unique design of the craft designed by Thoth, he smote Seth. So, in this end of this tablet here, Thoth says, hey, also, by the way, I'm putting a craft beneath the Sphinx. And he's saying that, in the future, there's going to be some invaders come from the deep. And for those who are following the path of wisdom, and I don't quite know who he's talking about, it's probably already been done. He asks you to recover this ship and easily smite the invaders. So I thought that was like, wow, this is just crazy. So I wonder if Jim Hertog's Siwas radar data showed a vessel underneath the Sphinx, just like he's saying here.
Well, I was describing the drilling that I have in that documentary, but the reason I have it is because Edgar Casey predicts the chamber underneath the paws of the Sphinx, and then the ARE, the Area Association for Research and Enlightenment, the Edgar Casey Foundation as it's known, then funds Zahi Hawass, probably paid for his education, and another guy as well. And then there's some that's a
very interesting story, by the way.
Yeah, and then there's some surreptitious behavior where they have financial backing for drilling, and this, I've done a few shows on that, and basically what happens is they appease everybody and make the situation go away. Yes, we drilled the Sphinx, but when you look at the video, Gerald, they drilled at such a bad angle, they wouldn't hit any chamber. They would have just drilled into solid rock. They drilled it at a very, very acute angle to miss the chamber deliberately.
Well, Thoth actually goes, hey, you know, the Sphinx and the Giza Pyramid are keystones one to the other. And then he kind of sends you into, there's a chamber in my pyramid that ends in a wall to an open hidden door. And he says, in order to open this door, that you'll need the key of the 7. Right? So he's giving you these like little clues. Well, if you look at page 355 of my book, he tells you what the key of the 7 is for all those people who have been sending robots in there to try and see with a camera what's at the end of this thing. I wonder if they ever opened that chamber. You know, they found a chamber like that, right?
Yeah, and there's another door behind that door, that little chamber. They drilled a hole in it.
Oh, here it is. This is probably what sent them looking for it right here. And I will tell you on page 355, I believe that is the sequence of words that is the key of the 7. Because he's talking about the 7 cycle masters, the 3 through 9. Right?
Wow.
So once you know that, then you go find whatever their key is, and that, I just told you what it was.
Wonderful stuff, Gerald. Wonderful stuff.
Anyway, so I thought that was very, very telling. And I'm not sure I have much more to add to the introduction of this tablet. I think it tells just a wonderful story by itself.
Sure. Well, if you're okay, Gerald, I'll play out the rest of the show with the Emerald Tablet number 5 if you're good to go.
I'm good to go. I think we covered some good ground today, and I'm really excited to do 6 and 7 after we do a show on Nibiru / the Annunaki. I think it might be fun to take a little break from this and catch up on what's happening in the world.
Well, I have a lot of requests for Nibiru at the moment, and I know some good. I've got another guy. He's an astronomer guy, and there's such a frenzy on Nibiru at the moment, Gerald, and that's why I want to do a show with you. I want to.
Yeah, I've been watching it climb to a crescendo over the last 5 years.
Yeah,
and I think it would be a good time to lay out everything that we know that can be backed up tangibly and try, and if we want to make inferences, we can, but at least to have the best realistic information we can get without being the ones behind the telescopes, because, ultimately they're the ones that know.
Sure. Well, let's do that, Gerald. We'll come back for a Nibiru special for the next show and pause it for a little while, and then we'll come back to do the next tablets as well, 6 and 7. But for now, we're going to finish out the rest of the show on Errol tablet number 5.
Okay, sounds great.
Oft dream I of buried Atlantis, lost in the ages that have passed into night. Eon on eon thou existed in beauty, a light shining through the darkness of night. Mighty in power, ruling the earthborn, Lord of the earth in Atlantis' day. King of the nations, master of wisdom, light through suntel, keeper of the way. Dwelt in his temple the master of Unal, light of the earth in Atlantis' day. Master he from a cycle beyond us, living in bodies as one among men. Not as earthborn he from beyond us, son of a cycle advanced beyond men. Know ye, O man, that Horloth the master was never one with the children of men. Far in the past, when Atlantis first grew as a power, appeared there one with the key of wisdom, showing the way of light to all. Showed he to all men the path of attainment, the way of the light that flows among men. Mastering darkness, leading the man-soul upward to heights that were one with the light. Divided the kingdoms he into sections, 10 were they, ruled by children of men. Upon another he built a temple, built but not by the children of men. Out of the ether he called its substance, molded and formed by the power of Yolton. Into the forms he built with his mind. Mile upon mile it covered the island, space upon space it grew in its might. Black, yet not black, but dark like the space-time, deep in its heart the essence of light. Swiftly the temple grew into being, molded and shaped by the word of the dweller, called from the formless into a form. Builded he then with it great chambers, filled them with forms called forth from the ether, filled them with wisdom called forth from his mind. Formless was he within his temple, yet he was formed in the image of men. Dwelling among them, yet not of them, strange and far different was he from the children of men. Chose he then among the people 3 who became his gateway. Choose he the 3 from the highest to become his links with Atlantis. Messengers they who carried his counsel to the kings of the children of men. Brought he forth others and taught them wisdom, teachers they to the children of men. Placed he them on the island of Undal to stand as teachers of light to men. Each of those who were thus chosen, taught must he be for 5 years and 10. Only thus could he have understanding to bring the light to the children of men. Thus there came into being the temple, a dwelling place for the master of men. I, Thoth, have ever sought wisdom, searching in darkness and searching in light. Long in my youth I traveled the pathway, seeking ever new knowledge to gain. Until after much striving, one of the 3 to me brought the light. Brought he to me the commands of the dweller, called me from the darkness into the light. Brought he me before the dweller, deep in the temple before the great fire. There on the great throne beheld I the dweller, clothed with the light and flashing with fire. Down I knelt before that great wisdom, feeling the light flowing through me in waves. Heard I then the voice of the dweller, O darkness, come into the light. Long have ye sought the pathway to light. Each soul on earth that loosens its fetters shall soon be made free from the bondage of night. Forth from the darkness have ye risen, closer approached the light of your goal. Here ye shall dwell as one of my children, keeper of records gathered by wisdom, instrument thou of the light from beyond. Ready by thou made to do what is needed, preserver of wisdom through the ages of darkness. that thou shalt come fast on the children of men. Live thee here, and drink of all wisdom, secrets and mysteries unto thee shall unveil. Then answered I, the master of cycles, saying, O light that descended to men, give thou to me of thy wisdom, that I might be a teacher of men. Give thou of thy light, that I may be free. Spoke then to me again the master, Age after age shall ye live through your wisdom. I, when o'er Atlantis the ocean waves roll, holding the light through hidden in darkness, ready to come whenever thou shalt call. Go thee now and learn greater wisdom, grow thou through light to infinities all. Long then dwelt I in the temple of the dweller, until at last I was one with the light. Followed I then the path to the star plains, followed I then the pathway to light. Deep into earth's heart I followed the pathway, learning the secrets below as above, learning the pathway to the halls of Amente, learning the law that balances the world. To earth's hidden chamber pierced I by my wisdom, deep through the earth's crust into the pathway, hidden for ages from the children of men. Unveiled before me ever more wisdom, until I reached the new knowledge, found that all is part of an all, great and yet greater than all that we know. Searched I infinity's heart through all the ages, deep and yet deeper more mysteries I found. Now as I look back through the ages, know I that wisdom is boundless, ever grown deeper throughout the ages, one with infinities greater than all. Light there was in ancient Atlantis, yet darkness too was hidden in all. Fell from the light into the darkness some who had risen to heights among men. Proud they became because of their knowledge, proud they were of their place among men. Deep delved they into the forbidden, opened the gateway that led to below. Sought they to gain ever more knowledge, but seeking to bring it up from below. He who descends below must have balance, else he is bound by lack of our light. Opened they then by their knowledge pathways forbidden to man. But in his temple all-seeing the dweller lay in his aguante, while through Atlantis his soul roamed free. Saw he the Atlanteans by their magic open the gateway that would bring to earth a great woe. Fast fled his soul then back to his body, up he arose from his aguante. Called he the three mighty messengers, gave the commands that shattered the world. Deep neath earth's crust to the halls of Amente swiftly descended the dweller. Called he then on the powers of the seven lords wielded, changed the earth's balance. Down sank Atlantis beneath the dark waves, shattered the gateway that had been opened, shattered the doorway that had led down below. All of the islands were shattered except Unal, and part of the island of the sons of the dweller. Preserved he them to be teachers, light on the path for those to come after, light for the lesser children of men. Called he then, I Thoth before him, gave me commands for all I should do, saying, Take thou, O Thoth, all of your wisdom, take all your records, take all your magic. Go thou forth as a teacher of men, go thou forth reserving the records, until in time light grows among men. Light shall thou be all through the ages, hidden yet found by enlightened men. Over all earth give we power, free thou to give or take it away. Gather now the sons of Atlantis, take them and flee to the people of the rock caves. Fly to the land of the children of Chem. Then gathered I the sons of Atlantis. Into the spaceship I brought all my records. Brought the records of sunken Atlantis. Gathered I all my power instruments, many of mighty magic. Up then we rose on wings of the morning. High we rose above the temple, leaving behind the three and the dweller, deep in the halls neath the temple, closing the pathways to the lords of the cycles. Yet ever to him who has knowing, open shall be the path to Amente. Fast fled we then on the wings of the morning, fled to the land of the children of Chem. There by my power I conquered and ruled them, raised I to light the children of Chem. Deep neath the rock I buried my spaceship, waiting the time when man might be free. Over the spaceship erected a marker in the form of a lion, yet like unto man. There 'neath the image rest ye my spaceship, forth to be brought when the need shall arise. Know ye, O man, that far in the future invaders shall come from out of the deep. Then awake ye who have wisdom, bring forth my ship and conquer with ease. Deep 'neath the image lies my secret, search and find in the pyramid I build. Each to the other is the keystone, each the gateway that leads into life. Follow the key I leave behind me, seek in the doorway till life shall be thine. Seek thou in my pyramid, deep in the passage that ends in a wall. Use thou the key of the 7, and open thee the pathway will fall. Now unto thee I have given my wisdom, now unto thee I have given my way. Follow the pathway, solve thou my secrets, unto thee I have shown the way.